Hey guys, Roejimbo here. If you guys follow me over on Instagram, also at Roejimbo, you may be familiar with the combo that I have right here. What we have right here is, first off, probably the most gnarly knife I own in my collection. Um, this thing is the Emerson XHD Commander, and it is an awesome and terrifying beast of a knife. This thing has a 0.156 inch thick blade stock, 0.093 titanium liners, zero point 0.2 titanium backspacer, big, thick, waffled G10 scales on either side. It's riding on BTX ball bearings, and when this thing fires, it is an absolute beast. It recoils, and at 9 inches length overall, this thing is just terrifying to behold, and that's why it's one of my favorite pieces. And I have frequently paired it up with this Jaws ring here. This is also one of my favorite pieces. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the work that I do, but I'm a sculptor and a metal caster, and I made this ring for a client a little over a year ago, and this is not his. This is a copy that I made for myself. But this is also one of the gnarliest pieces that I've ever done. This took almost a year to make. It's a massively large ring. I don't know if you guys can see on my hand here, but it's huge. It takes up most of my fist, and it's especially intricate in the sense that the skin and the teeth and the gums are all separate pieces. This copper piece forms the gums, and it rides inside of this solid sterling silver skull or skin here. And then inside, I don't know if you guys can see here, the teeth are all coming up through the gums, and they're all 14 karat gold, and I believe there's over 60 of them if you include all the teeth behind the teeth. So yeah, this was a monumental task. All these little dots that form the texture, everything is hand done, dot by dot. So yeah, the two most terrifying pieces in my collection. So, what's better than having two really terrifying pieces, one beast combo? Well, what's better than that is having two terrifying combos. This is the copper or the solid brass version of the Shark, and this is, of course, the XHD-7. And I think that they make a pretty nice combo together, because they are both also beasts, and they are in good company together. So the video is mainly about this XHD-7 here. Thanks for sticking with me through all the chat about Jaws rings and the Commander, but I think that the Commander especially is going to be pertinent to some of the conversation coming up here regarding this 7, because I can't help but compare them. Obviously, they're both XHDs, and I got the Commander first, so I was kind of expecting this to be very similar to the Commander. And in a lot of ways it is, and in a lot of ways it's not that similar. One of the most notable things that differs is obviously the size. So look at the overall size. If I put the back end, um, there we go. Now they're lined up. Look at that. You got a full extra inch. This one is clocking in at 8 inches long overall. The XHD-7 is 8 inches. The Commander is actually 9 inches. Emerson's website says 875, but I took a ruler to it, and it is actually 9 inches. So this thing is massive. And this is also very large, the 7. Let me get these sharks out of the way. I don't want to hit them. All right. They're both large, but the Commander is just, it really fills the hand and is just almost prohibitively large for taking places. I say almost because, you know, with a great enough love, I think most of us could manage it. And I love this knife, so it does come with me a lot of places. The other thing that is kind of a big difference I found is the it's very it's right now it needs breaking in or something, because it is really tough to unlock. Got a lot of lock stick on this one right now, the 7, versus the Commander, which I did get secondhand. I got it. I was not the one who originally purchased it from the Emerson website. So I don't know, maybe the other guy played with it a little bit before I got it, and so it was slightly more broken in. But this one is just way easier to unlock and seems a lot smoother, more drop sheddy. Obviously, a lot of that is because this is a huge blade, and there's a lot of weight way out on the end that's going to, you know, send it back home with a lot of authority. Versus the 7 is a much smaller blade, and so it's not going to be as drop shut. See that? It's just still a little bit, it needs that breaking in or something. Possibly pivot lube. But I have yet to take it apart and do all that kind of stuff. But the other thing too is that so all of these XHDs have a heat-treated piece of steel, hardened piece of steel as the lock face or lock interface. So people who worry about a titanium lock bar coming in contact with a steel blade, they're not going to have to worry with the XHDs, because you have this steel portion, which I think is replaceable. You can see there's like some screws so that you could unscrew this portion. Although the steel is more durable than titanium, so I can't see a reason why you would ever have to remove that. But anyways, that's how that works. The only thing is that with this one, with the 7, that piece of steel is pretty sharp. You can see there's this jimping on it, and it's a pretty aggressive jimping versus this more kind of like standard Emerson fine jimping, you know, with many peaks and troughs, as opposed to this over here, which is more of a tank tread style, like crenellation on like a castle wall, something like that. So this one, the Commander, is a lot comfier on the finger, disengages without any kind of lock stick, and just drops. Not the case with the 7. The 7 sticks. It's very sharp on the finger when you do go to click it down, and then you can give it a little shake and get it to do the fall shut, but it's just oof, man, see, that is tight. Yeah, so it's right now the action is something to be desired. Not the action so much as the closing action, but the action also is something that I will say I'm not as impressed with on the 7 as I am on the Commander. The first one of these I got actually. So let me tell you a story about how I managed to acquire this XHD-7. So I was actually I went on Emerson's website and was looking at the limited availability page, and I was shocked to see that there were still any more of these XHD-7s available. Usually, when an XHD line or an XHD release happens, that stuff sells out instantaneously. But I guess, since this is the second releasing of the 7, I'm thinking that maybe that first initial group of people who just will absolutely have to have it, they've probably already got one, or maybe it's the fact that we're coming up on Christmas, and people have to budget things out a little bit differently around the holidays. But for whatever the reason, this was still available, and I actually live in Los Angeles, so I can drive down to the Emerson headquarters. And I just thought, oh man, it's now like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If I hop in the car right now, I could probably make it down to San Pedro area by before they close at 3 o'clock, because traffic out here is horrible. But anyways, I thought, I've got enough money in the account to do it. I know I could always turn around and sell it if I need to, because these things always are of interest to people, and they're not available all the time. So I figured, well worth it. So I pulled the trigger, called Emerson to make sure that I would be able to pick it up that day. Drove down to the showroom and picked this guy up. But actually, it wasn't this guy. It was a different XHD-7. I got it out to the car and opened the thing up. Man, that is tight. And then see, look at this. Sometimes it doesn't. You got to get it over that ramp. Anyways, I got this thing out. Got the 7 out to the car. Went to go hit it, and I did that where it didn't fully fire. And I mean, I can do that intentionally with this if I want, because you just have to give it a light amount of pressure from above. But the point is, it didn't fire, and so I closed it, went to do it again. It still didn't fire on the second one. And then I realized, oh, I guess this is a little more push-buttony and, less light switchy. And it was fine after that, but I just, I closed the knife, tried just sort of wrist flicking it out, and I was able to, get it to deploy. And I could do that with this one. This one's better. Obviously, if I do that, it'll go in reverse. Well, so difficult under the camera. So this one's better. Obviously, the point is, the detent was super light on the first one that I got. So light that I felt, obviously, I'm paying this price. I'm right here at the manufacturer. I might as well just walk back in and see if I can get one with a better detent. So I went in, asked them about it, and, no problem. They came out with this one. They said, we checked this one. What do you think? It works pretty good for me. It's still nowhere near the heavy detent that is on the Commander. So with this one, it's almost impossible for me to not fire. I guess I could do it like that, but even still, it's now in a place where if I shook it, it would be locked. This one just has the Commander just has such a good detent that it just fires like a beast. It's just like a bat out of hell. So that is a little bit different. I was kind of like, oh no, this thing is not nearly as poppy. That said, having hung out with this and just continuing to play with it, it is a lot of fun. It still has a lot of the same authority as the Commander. It's just one of these things where, they're both badass. Again, at first I was slightly disappointed in that, this is still a little bit rough having to close it with that much force. It just doesn't feel quite as refined as the Commander does. And little things. Both of these guys, both the Commander and the 7, have this weird thing where, can you see where there is a hole where the stop pin is, I guess, on a normal model? See in the back here? Yeah, there you go. See that hole? Well, that's usually where the pin goes. Like on something like here's a 7. Come on, zoom in. See how the pin is right there? The stop pin? This would come up and then fall back against that. Well, in both the Commander and the 7 here, they still have this hole milled into the liner, or drilled into the liner, but there is no pin. I mean, obviously it's because it uses a whole different type of pin. The pin is riding inside a track inside the tang. So you see that line crossing through, that's the pin inside there. And so there's like this big kind of semicircle cutout track that pin, that the blade slides along that pin inside of. So that's kind of that's a weird thing that I feel like, why not just get rid of that hole? I don't know why you would have that there in these bigger, beefier versions. The other thing too is that now this is something that if you fire with authority is not going to really be a problem, but if you just like push button it, you can stop the blade from opening with the finger that you just pushed down, because again, this back of the knife here, the tang, or the portion that would interface with that stop pin there, see right there how that portion would now be resting up against the pin. Well, since you're firing this thing and your finger is now in that path, you can actually inhibit the blade from opening with your finger there, which is kind of where it lands when you push it. So that's kind of, again, just like, this doesn't need to be here now, So there's kind of old vestiges from the original design that are inhibiting the XHD design. Now, if you just push it with plenty of authority and allow your finger to slide down, you're never going to have a problem. It's always going to fire. But these are the nitpicks. Other than that, this thing is extremely badass. The thickness of the blade is just so much more prominent on the 7 than it is on the Commander. If you look at the Commander, has that swedge, right? And while that's really, really sexy, it also makes the blade look a little thinner than it is, because this is the same stock. But the 7, I mean, you really get that nasty pry bar kind of feel out of this thing, because it is just a chunk of steel. This is also something weird. There's a little dot on the back side. That's kind of like, I know I didn't do that. I don't know how that got there. It won't come off with alcohol. It looks almost like a rub, but right? Yeah, I don't know. I've got it wearing, I've got both of my XHDs with my 460 Smith & Wesson mag Hornaday rounds. I had these specially cut down and turned for me by Kales on Instagram and on USN. So yeah, I think they look great together. Like I said in the beginning, what's better than having one beast piece? It's having two. And having a pair of these really just, like, it's so satisfying. I would say that be careful. If you buy one of these, you're gonna be starting to think, two of these would be way better. I do have two hands. But yeah, they're such sick pieces, just outrageous. Let me give you some stats on them, just so that now I already gave you the stat that this is 8 overall, but the blade length is 3.3 inches. Like I said about the Commander, and it's the same for the 7, the blade thickness is 0.156. The liner thickness is 0.093, and that's titanium. The blade is S35VN. Focus there. Believe me, that's what it is. S35VN. G10 for the handle scales, the hardened lock bar. The ball bearings it's running on are BTX or BTC ball bearings. I'm not exactly sure what BTC ball bearings look like because I haven't opened up either of these yet, but one of these days I will, and maybe I will post a video so that you guys can see what it looks like inside of one of these XHDs. And then the weight on the 7 is actually 6.3 ounces, which is interesting because the weight on a typical 7 is actually 5.3 ounces. So you're adding an entire ounce when you upgrade to the XHD version. And this is just a good little comparison here, these two. You can see what the difference is in thickness. It's pretty, it's fairly sizable. The thickness on the XHD is actually, let's see, thickness is 0.65 if you go just liner to liner, and then it's actually 0.83 if you include the clip. So, I mean, we're getting almost into that 1-inch territory on the thickness of this. So it's, again, very sizable. Same thing goes for the Commander. And the Commander, just for comparison again, 1 inch longer overall, so it's 9 inches. And then the weight on that guy is 7.4 ounces. So it is that much heavier. You're over an ounce, 1.1 ounces more when you jump to the Commander versus the 7. So you certainly get a little more for your buck with the Commander. And also, just from a fiddle factor, like having fun, kind of fondling your knife, the Commander is kind of the clear victor right now. We'll see if maybe additional break-in will get the 7 up to the same place, but this one is just like all day long I can just play with this, and it's endlessly satisfying. The sound that this one makes is it's like I've described it as like almost like if you've heard like a cat open its mouth, but this is such a bigger noise that it's like maybe like a lion opening its mouth. It's just it's a threatening sound. Listen to this. I mean, maybe that doesn't translate, but there's a certain kind of like, I don't know. It's like a metallic-y, I don't know. It's very frightening. It's different than any other knife. Compare the sound to a sheepdog. Well, sheepdog is actually, so the sheepdog I brought out because it's a good comparison to the 7 in the sense of like how strong that detent is. See, it has a nice clack, but this one just has it. I don't know. It's deeper. It has more resonance. It's something else. Again, now compared to your 7. Oh my God, that is tough lock bar. That is just painful on the finger. So I may come back in here and sand some of this with like a or with a file, just come in and knock down the edge just slightly, because it is really rough. So this is nice. It has a little bit more of that titanium resonance that, like, so you can hear it. It wants to do the squeak that it wants to do that squeak that the Tiger was doing for a while. So again, it could just be break-in, but it's nice. It just doesn't have the recoil, and it doesn't have the sound. But it's still extremely satisfying. Like, don't let me downplay this. This thing is still stupidly cool. I haven't been able to take it out of my pocket ever since I picked it up on Friday. So over the full weekend, it's Monday now, I've had both of these guys riding on me constantly, and it's just so much fun. I can't say enough good things about it, even though I've said a lot of, what could be interpreted as, somewhat negative things about this. It is unquestionably badass and cool, and I can't put it down. So that says something right away. There's almost something more challenging about this one, which makes me want to play with it more, rather than the Commander, which is just so buttery smooth, just so nice that you almost just become complacent. It's so nice. But yeah, oh, it's good that I'm really glad that I did get the 7 as well, because I love having both of these, and it also just kind of helps highlight the difference. I feel like if this one is smooth and easy and like hand filling, and it's just the I don't know, like the luxury, I don't know, the Mercedes-Benz kind of like luxury like large four-wheel drive kind of version of this guy here, which is sort of your more, I don't know, it's a little rougher. It's definitely more of like a performance vehicle that's a little more lowered down. You're gonna feel more feedback for sure, but it has its own kind of responsiveness that is really satisfying to deal with. So yeah, really cool. And the other really cool thing about going and picking up this 7 was that, and another good reason that I'm kind of like pleased that at first I did get the weak detent version, was that it gave me time to then go back in and pick up this one, which bought me just enough time to actually see Mr. Emerson leaving the building. So that was a pretty good treat for me. I've been down to the Emerson showroom at least a dozen times in the past few years, and never have I seen Ernie himself. And so it was a real treat. I actually was kind of parked weirdly next to his truck, because his truck was parked sort of in the middle against the back of the street, and I was like tucked into the corner. So he was carrying out a big box of stuff, and kind of had to walk around my car to get to his. And I said, "Oh, hey, Ernie, my apologies if my car is in your way. I couldn't find parking here. I was just come to pick up my HD-7, not HD-7, my XHD-7." And he said, "Oh yeah, I don't know what exactly he said. He had a big box. He was kind of struggling getting it into the car." So I opened up my car, turned around and told him, like, "Oh, hey, my apologies for not competing in your pumpkin carving contest this year. I've won the past 3 years, and this year time just got away from me." At which point, he asked my name, shook his hand, told him that I was a fan of his knives and the podcast, and he looked like he was ready to get on the road. So I said, "All right, well, have a great day," and basically it was just a really nice, like, quick little exchange. I didn't want to like trouble him too much, nerd out on it, ask him for an autograph or a photo or something. Just a shake of the hand and a few words was really like kind of the perfect way to follow up picking up this knife. And I think that I'm going to constantly, every time I see this knife, I'm going to remember that. So yeah, it was a really nice day. Like, seriously, how often do you suddenly realize, oh shit, they still have XHDs? Fuck it, I'm buying one, and then I'm gonna go pick it up right now and meet Ernie Emerson. Like, it was a, it was definitely a good day for an Emerson fan. Even though the traffic was terrible, it gave me a lot of time to play with this on the. Hey there, sorry about that, guys. My phone battery went kaput on me, so booted it back up to just put in a few last comments about this XHD. Overall, really love it. It's a great piece. It's expensive, as are all the XHDs, but I'm glad I've added to the herd. Now I've got a pair of them, and yeah, I really like them. I'm gonna keep on playing with them. Maybe I should give you a real quick, before I do leave you, some paper cut on both of these, and maybe even a little cardboard, because I know you guys like to see that. So it's sharp. It's not as sharp as the Commander. Maybe I'm really misrepresenting it right now, but there we go. Yeah. Since it is chisel ground and it is so thick, it's kind of it has a slightly different dynamic passing through the paper than, you know, your typical 7 or a V ground blade. But that's it on some paper as compared to this guy on paper. I mean, it's the V grind, I think, helps a lot. It's also maybe just a little sharper. I mean, that could also be part of it, although it feels pretty damn sharp. Let's play with a little bit of cardboard. So, some cardboard. It's certainly a little bit of maybe not the God's gift of box cutting, as certain YouTube reviewers say. Let's try this guy. I think this one is a lot nicer. Also, a bit of a drag passing through that much card, but it does it. It's a lot easier to do business with the Commander than it is with the 7. And I think that's just inherently the chisel grind. You know, the chisel grind looks dope as fuck. I mean, it looks cool. It is such a unique look, but it's not always the most useful when it comes to cutting things. It's a gnarly pry bar, but and it'll stab like nobody's business. I mean, this thing is terrifying in that regard. But maybe not your EDC go-to. So, anyways, guys, that's the XHDs. I've said everything I can say. I'll bring you some more stuff on them in the future as I accrue more experience and more insights. hope you enjoyed, and hope you have a great day. Take care.